Happy Sunday, everybody. At least those who are here in the same time zone that I am, at least in the States on EST. But wanted to hop on here, as per usual, with the same intro that I always use. But staying consistent. I know this is my second video, technically, in the past 7 days, which I have a lot of catching up to do because I haven't been sticking to my one video a week challenge as well as I'd like to. But the biggest question of today is a 8-year-old, 7-year-old camera, 7 years old, is a 7-year-old camera in 2025 still worth it? And it probably makes the most sense to talk about what camera I'm speaking to, but let's get into it. So recently picked this camera up because, as everybody knows who's been following this channel, I definitely have GAR, which is Gear Acquisition, GAS, Gear Acquisition Syndrome. But this camera was, as most people think, another Fuji camera, because by now, anyone who's following the channel knows that I shoot almost entirely on Fujifilm, and that is the ecosystem that I have chosen for the time being because it suits my needs. I love the color science, I love the film simulations, everything about it, and this is a little bit older of a Fuji camera. As I said, it's 7 years old, so let's dive into the Fujifilm X-T3. So this was my first Fujifilm in the XT single number series, because the fact that, as I'm sure anybody who's been staying up to date with my photography or this channel in general knows, that I started on Canon for many years, and I switched over to Fujifilm a little over a year ago at this point, and I started with the X-T50, which in my opinion was an absolutely awesome way to get into the Fujifilm system. I know a lot of people these days are getting in with the X-T50 or the X-T30 Mark II. And at the time when I wasn't doing a lot of shoots, that was a great camera to get me into Fuji, to get used to the system, to get used to just everything to expect when using a Fuji camera, because they're definitely very different than Canon. They're very different than Sony. And, I've had both of those, but Fuji is my go-to these days. So why did I pick up a 7-year-old camera when I have the XH2 with the 40 megapixel sensor that I'm shooting on right now, when I also have the XM5, which has the 6.2K open gate recording and is pretty much brand new? Why did I go for this older Fuji? And that's a great question. So one, I just love a good deal, which is my biggest problem. So I ended up getting this camera at way cheaper than market value. This was around $500 with 200 mechanical shutter clicks, which is just an absolute steal, because these are even going, being 7 years old, for between $750 to $850. I've seen them upwards of $1,000 as well, because this in 2018 was one of Fuji's flagship cameras. But I didn't buy it just because it was a flagship camera. I bought it because I wanted to get back to shooting in a more nostalgic way, which the XM5 is awesome, but it doesn't have the viewfinder, which it just is a much more digital style of shooting. The XH2 is just much more standard DSLR type shape, and it doesn't give you the tactile feels that you get when shooting on these iconic Fujifilm cameras. And from what I had read before picking this camera up was that the X-T3 was one of the last absolutely incredibly built Fujifilm cameras, and I can confirm that for sure. And granted, I haven't had the X-T5. I've played with an X-T4 in the past, but this camera just feels so quality, so high level. But when it comes down to it, it's the shooting experience for me that makes me slow down more and enjoy shooting with this camera. And I think the same could probably be said for the X-T30 as well. But, the biggest question I'm going to be answering from an opinion-based standpoint in the video today is this camera worth it in 2025? So let's talk about what I really do like about this camera, why I think it's a good option, even in today's age with being an older camera. But, From the start of it, let's talk about just the actual user interface from like a hands-on perspective. So it does have your traditional ISO dial, it has the traditional shutter speed dial, exposure comp, and this just gives you a very manual feel when shooting with this camera, and it makes you slow down because it's not just, you can set it up to auto, but that's not the point of this camera, right? So this for me, and what I've paired it with most frequently, is this TT Artisan 25mm f2, which is a fully manual lens. And so this experience when shooting with this camera is pristine because, like I said, it allows me to slow down, it allows me to really focus on the composition of my subjects, and it allows me to enjoy the moment that I'm in when I'm shooting. And that's where true photography, personal opinion there, that's where true photography should be focused, is enjoying the experience of shooting, not just enjoying the photos that you're getting out of it, because I can do that with these digital cameras. Like, you know, the XM5, even though I can use a manual lens on it, and I've been using the 35mm 7 Artisan 1.4, it's not that idea of just like post up, shoot, but be able to frame your subject however you want. This camera does that for me, and I mean, this is a beautiful camera. Like that's all you can say about it. I've been stopped multiple times with people asking, you know, what type of film camera is that? How old is it? And it's the very simple, just, it's not, but you know, it's a digital camera, but it has a very film feel to it. The one caveat I will say with the film is just Fuji. If anyone ever comes across this video, I know this is an older camera, but can you please just put an update so we can get nostalgic negative on this camera? It has the same sensor as the X-T4. The X-T4 got it. Just give the X-T3. I want to be able to create classic Cuban negative again. It's my favorite film simulation. I use it on everything else. Sidebar note. But that's what I like from just like the outside perspective of it. Just the feel, the tactile experience, and just the slowing down for me. When it comes to more like features within the camera, like one cool, if I can actually pop it out, is, you know, having this nice tilt down screen. The other one that I know that the X-T5 did not have was the portrait, you know, pop out, which is pretty cool. It doesn't have the flip screen like my XM5 or my X-H2, but this is not going to be a main video camera for me. And while it does have the 4K 60, it's very, very capable, but that's not the focus of what I'm using this camera for. I can see why this was definitely a flagship Fuji in its time, because of the fact that, you know, with having that 4K 60, which I feel like was way ahead of a lot of other cameras, it also has the full weather sealing as long as you have the weather sealed lens, which this manual lens is not. It also has the dual card slots, which, there we go, got that in focus. This is very convenient just for having, whether you want to make duplicates, you want to have additional storage, that's great. It is both standard SD cards as compared to the XH lines, which have the Express Type B, or at least the XH2 and XH2S have the Express cards. This camera has been a blast to use. I like it because of the fact that, especially having a viewfinder, because I do have a lot of compact cameras with my Ricoh, my XM5, you know, this is still fairly compact, and here's just a quick video just showcasing all three of my main Fujis with a 27, or in this case the 25 lens on them. The XH2 is just way too big to throw in like a fanny pack, and while it is spec'd out to wazoo and has every feature I could ever want, I have to be like planning to go out and just be shooting to want to bring this camera out with me. Versus the XM5, I can bring out whenever I want as just like a quick point and shoot camera. Same thing with my Ricoh, but this is where I know I'm gonna be out. I want to have a camera on me, and I want to have a little bit more of an experience and just enjoy it a little bit more than I do with my XM5. But this fits in a fanny pack, especially with a smaller lens. But the great thing about this is, if I want to have, and of course I don't have any sitting with me right here, but if I want to put a bigger lens on this, like my Viltrox 27mm or my Fuji 56 1.2, this is perfectly capable of utilizing the full quality of the sensor with those lenses, and it's not uncomfortable because even though this isn't, you know, a crazy big grip, this works, and it's a big enough body that it's not over the top unstable, and it's not as ergonomic as the XH series or the XS series. It does exactly what I need it to do, and that's the biggest thing for me. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, is how are the quality of the photos. And before I showcase any of these photos, I do want to point out that even though it's not the X-Trans 5 like on the XS20 or the XM5, this is still the same 26 megapixel sensor that is on the XM5. And this came out in 2024, this came out in 2018. It's the same sensor. So the quality of the images, same. Autofocus, a little bit different. This has the new subject recognition on it, but these photos are still beyond beautiful. And when I'm using it with a manual lens like this TT Artisan or my Minolta or the 7 Artisans, all the manual lenses that I have, I get such perfectly imperfect photos, which is exactly what I'm looking for because it gives so much more art to what I'm looking to produce out of these cameras, because that's what I enjoy. And while I'm not doing as professional work or as often as I used to, you know, I want to have work that I'm proud of and that I love posting and seeing and just being able to reminisce on, in a sense. So when it comes down to it, the only real negatives I find with this camera are the lack of IBIS, which that's okay. You know, a few of my cameras don't have IBIS. The XH2 does and the Ricoh does, but I'm not using this for heavy video or a ton of low light scenarios. I don't need it for that, so it's not overly bothersome, while it would be nice to have because I know the X-T4 with the same sensor did get IBIS. That's okay for me. The other thing is, clearly, I think the last update for the X-T3 was in the beginning of 2024, so it's not outdated, but once again, I'm going to repeat it. Fuji, please just give us nostalgic negative. That's all I want. That's all I want for this camera. But the autofocus is definitely a little bit slower, but it's not unusable slow. I mean, I'd say it's comparable even to my Ricoh, which the Ricoh is, you know, those came out in like 2019 as is, but it's not perfect. It's not going to be your Sony. It's not going to be your Canon, but I don't have high expectations for a camera that I'm primarily using manual lenses on as is, because I'm taking it out for the experience and the photos that I get out of it, not for the autofocus, not for the scientific perfection of a photo. This is what I use on an everyday basis. And while it comes down to would I recommend other people buy this camera in 2025, I think it's really based on your use case. If you want a hybrid shooter with amazing video, no, don't buy this camera. It's not what it's for. But if you are just looking to get into the Fujifilm ecosystem and you don't want to be waitlisted for a year for the X106 or the XM5, and you don't want to, you know, you want to have some of those qualities to grow into, I think this is a great option because you can get it at the same price as like an X-T30 Mark II or cheaper than an X-T50, but it gives you these pro level qualities and specifications that you can grow into, which that is a better value add if you can find a used one of these in great condition. It's not hard to use for beginners. Granted, that's hard for me to say because I'm not a beginner at this point at all, but it has so many great qualities that you can continually expand upon without having a extremely complicated interface, and you can still get amazing photos out of this camera. So if that's what you're looking for, great option in 2025. But all things considered, appreciate y'all hopping on here again. Here's some more photos from this video, or from this camera, not from this video, in this video from this camera. So let me know what you think. And as always, if you're new here, thanks for sticking in or sticking on this long. If you're coming back, great to have you again. If you haven't yet, click that subscribe button and stay tuned with all things updates on my side of things, but look forward to catching you all in the next one, and see you soon. Peace.